Hi class, in this video here we're going to move into section 2.7 and this is an economics application and this is what's called elasticity of demand. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this lecture up into a couple of videos here, and in this first video here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give a real basic economics lesson on elasticity so we kind of have an understanding of what it is, and then in the follow-up lectures I'll move into the calculus problems. Okay. So first off, in economics, what is elasticity? So elasticity is a measure of how much buyers and sellers respond to changes in market conditions. This could be like a change in the price, the change of individuals' incomes. It just looks at what happens to basically, the supply and demand of a good when you change something. Like what happens if, people's incomes double? Like what's going to happen to the supply and demand curves? Anyways, what this just does is it allows us to analyze supply and demand with greater precision. And you're going to see that when we get to the calculus type problems. So this section focuses primarily on, or really only on, price elasticity of demand. Okay. So what is this price elasticity of demand? So it's the percentage change in quantity demanded given a percentage change in the price. Okay, so basically what it is, it's a measure of how much the quantity demanded of a good responds to a change in the price of that good. So for example, if you have an item and price drops for the item by 20%, what would happen to the demand of that good? And it really depends on the type of good, okay? Generally you would think when price falls by 20%, demand should go up. But does demand go up by 20%? Does it go up by more than 20%? Does it go up by less than 20%? And so what this price elasticity of demand is, it really helps us measure that. So in this first section here, this first video here, I'm going to do just this basic formula of the percent change in quantity demand compared to a percent change in price. And then in the follow-up videos, I'll actually work the calculus of it. Okay. So because the price elasticity of demand measures how much quantity demanded responds to the price, it is closely related to the slope of the demand curve. Okay? So you can kind of see where the calculus is coming in. Slope, remember this is rate of change. So eventually what we're going to do is we're going to look at a derivative. Right, later on. Okay, that's where the calculus is going to come in. We're gonna look at the slope of the demand curve. All right, but instead of looking at a unit change, elasticity looks at the percentage change. Okay, so what do we mean by the percentage change? So let me just do a very, very simple example so that you can see. So the price elasticity of demand, just in basic economics terms, is equal to the percentage change in quantity demand divided by the percentage change in price. Okay, so here's an example. If the price of an ice cream cone increases from $2 to $2.20 and the amount you buy falls from 10 to 8 cones, then your elasticity of demand would be the following. Okay, so it's the percent change in quantity demanded. Well, if you're going to go from 10 to 20, 10 to 8, that's a 20% change. And then the percent increase in price, you see here it goes from $2 to $2.20, that's a 10% change. So 20% divided by 10%, we would say the price elasticity of demand is equal to 2. Okay, it's equal to 2. All right, so here are some ranges in what we'll classify elasticity by. The first is what we call inelastic demand. Okay, so that's when the percent change in price is greater than the percent change in quantity demanded. Okay, so what that means is like price goes up, 5%, but the change in demand is only like 2%. Okay, it falls by 2%. Okay, so this is when you see here the price elasticity of demand is less than 1. Okay, so when it's less than 1, we call it inelastic. Now, elastic demand, this when the percent change in quantity demand is greater than the percent change in price. Okay, so what that means is like price changes by 10%, but demand changes by 20%. Okay, so that's elastic. It's responding, very heavily to that change, whereas inelastic, it's not responding as heavily. And this, you're going to notice the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. So let me just show you visually kind of what's going on here. So first off, there's something called perfectly inelastic. Okay, that's when demand elasticity equals 0. And this happens when you have a vertical demand curve. So like if you increase price, something goes from $4 to $5, the quantity demanded doesn't change. Okay, this generally happens. This is very theoretical, but this generally happens when there are no substitutes to the good and it's a necessity. All right, here's an elastic demand. Okay, so this is elasticity less than 1. So here's the demand curve. All right, so let's just say at $4, 100 quantities are demanded. So when you increase, okay, when you go from $4 to $5, it's a 25% price increase. Look, what we notice here is that demand would only fall 10%. Okay, so inelastic price, larger price increase, a large price increase does not result in the similar decrease in price. Unit elastic equals 1. That's exactly what you would think, right? So if you raise price by 25%, leads to a 25% decrease in quantity. Okay, that's when elasticity is equal to exactly 1. It's called unit elastic. So now let's talk about this elastic. This is where elasticity is greater than 1. So notice the different shape of the demand curve here, right? Like this one here, and then look at the shape of this demand curve. It's a little different, right? So here, you're going to raise prices by 25%, but then demand drops by 50%. Okay, so that's elastic. It's responding very, very heavily to a price change. Okay, whereas inelastic doesn't respond as heavily to a price change. All right, this one is perfectly elastic demand. So what this is saying is you have a horizontal demand curve. So at any price above $4, quantity demanded is 0. And then any price below $4, the quantity demanded is infinite. Again, this is really just a theoretical example. Okay, so what are the determinants of price elasticity of demand? So necessity versus luxury, availability of close substitutes, and definition of the market, and time horizon. Okay, these are all things that are going to determine the price elasticity of demand. All right, so elasticity, okay, determinants here. So when demand tends to be more inelastic, okay, what that means is if the good is a necessity, so you require it, you need it, okay. The time period is shorter, so what that means is you don't have the real ability to change your purchasing patterns, okay. So you don't have time to go out and find a new good to change for it. All right, and there's a small number of close substitutes. Okay, these are things that tend to be inelastic. Okay, necessity, like healthcare is an example of this, right? Like if you're sick, you got to go get treatment real quickly. There might only be one doctor in town. Now, when demand tends to be more elastic, this is as good as a luxury. So it's not a necessity. It's nice to have it, but you don't really need it. The longer the time period, what that means is you can change your purchasing habits. You have a lot of time to make a decision. And there's a larger number of close substitutes. Like here's an example of something that tends to be elastic, like cereal brands, right? Like if I like Cheerios and they raise their price by $1, well, there's a bazillion other close substitutes to that I could just go pick something else out. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, you can see next, is this was a quick, very, very quick economics lesson on this, okay? So what I'm going to do in the following lectures is I'm going to work 2 examples of relating this to calculus so that you can see how you'll use this on the assignments for this section.